Hey guys, TehJew22 here, and welcome back to another edition of TehJew22 Talks. Now, last time my guest was a very good friend of mine, and heck, he's actually a great friend of not just me, but all my other friends that I refer to as my good friends. Well, most of them. But nonetheless, I had a chance to talk to Tanuki Teddy. Very cool guy. Do check it out when it comes out. But my next guest, or before I even get to that, I might as well make a disclaimer. Because I got this not too long ago, where one person thought that this series was more like a interview, kind of like Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, Walter Cronkite. I'm like, okay, I get the fact that you want me to focus more on the guest. That much I can live with that, but unfortunately, I have a feeling that you mistook, what this series is for what it should have been and not what you thought it was. It's supposed to be a casual talking to my guest or guests if I have more than one, as well as the guests talking to me and that sort of thing, kind of like a everyday conversation, but for the purposes of interviewing, but not like a typical interview. So, no, it's not a typical interview because if it was, I wouldn't even be doing it. And plus, I don't claim to be a great interviewer anyway. But that being said, I just wanted to get that little disclaimer out of the way. So, anyway, my next guest is one person that has been on YouTube long before I had ever made my first Let's Play. I'm not even counting my wrestling series. I'm talking my very first Let's Play, October 2011. That was when I made my first Let's Play. And this guy has been on YouTube long before that. And this is a guy that is severely underrated, doesn't even get enough attention that he deserves, doesn't even have the subs that he needs, that I would think he would have, but it's nothing against him. It's just, but other than that, by the time this interview is over, by the time this talks is over, you'll know a whole lot more about him when this is over. But I give you a good friend of mine since 2010. He is the one, the only
Retro RickXTN.
That's right. So,
AKA Retro Rick is what I go by, or my screen name pretty much everywhere, RickXTN.
yes, you pretty much hit it on the head, man. But it's great to have you, and yeah, he has been my good friend for more than half a decade.
And I don't know if I was on YouTube maybe like that long before you, but you started around when?
Well, I first opened my account in March 2010, but I didn't make my first video until a year later.
So I'm not exactly sure when my first one was, but I don't even know when I started XTW. I'm not even sure if the first few videos were on there or if I just played them out and reported them.
Well, we'll get to more of that, but the only thing I can say is that yes, you have been around on YouTube longer than that, and I have to say, you know what? I may as well talk about how I met Retro Rick, or how I found him. Like, I was looking for videos on SmackDown vs. Raw 2010 for the Wii, which was a new game at the time. And I was looking at the Royal Rumble, which had been revamped from previous years, if you remember, Rick.
Right.
And one video led to another, and before I knew it, that's how I found RickXTN.
Just the old YouTube thing. It's like, oh, let me go to this one. Let me look at that video. Oh, let me look at that one.
Pretty much. That's pretty much how it is. That's how much. That's what it was, man.
So what grabbed your attention?
To your channel or the?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what grabbed my attention? I have to say, it was probably the fact that, like, I was looking at your old channel description back in the. You know how back in the day you could write a channel description of how it was that you did your series.
Okay, yeah.
You know, it sucks that they changed it for the worse. Like, I liked it as it was. It was pretty cool back then.
Sometimes changes are good, sometimes they're not so good. You know, they work for some, they don't work for everybody.
Exactly. And but yeah, back in the day, you could do a channel description, a much better one at that, and you didn't have to make one or two clicks. It was like right there. All you had to do was scroll down and all of that. And but so yeah, I looked at the rules and I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then I go to your your messaging board, especially after I had caught up with all the videos up to that up to that point.
Right?
So then I go to your channel, or not your channel, but your messaging board, which is something you still use to this day,
Yeah.
and I guess you could say the rest is history.
You got hooked.
I got hooked. It's awesome. In fact, we'll tell you more how it works um, as we go along. But I guess normally I would ask how you got into the YouTube business, but you know what? We'll go with that.
Well, it was actually there's another guy that posts on the board that TehJew22 takes part in. He does the tag team battle rankings, which is you just vote for winners. This was a concept. This was actually created by myself. The battle rankings idea. I was bored at work. It was a slow morning. I was working at a gas station at the time, and obviously, if anyone, whatever job you have, when you get bored, and the mind will just wander sometimes. And I don't even think I was trying to come up with this idea. I think it just happened, and I was like, what if I did like a little tournament thing and you vote for the winner, and then like the winner move up, like a ladder tournament. Winner moves up to the next level, loser moves down to the previous level. And then I had to think about like, well, how do you get new names in every time so that you keep things moving, so you're not just locked into having however many names. And so, you know, long story short, the concept ended up being, and this is how XTW works to this day, except played on video games. You, at the very bottom, let's start at the very bottom. That's the easiest way. The hopefuls pool, as we call it, because these are the guys that are hoping to move up to the next level. So you get to submit, and in the case of the battle rankings of voting, you just submitted one name. So anybody who took part would submit a new name that's not currently on in any of the other matches above that, and then that becomes a vote. So if you have 10 people participating, you get a list of 10 names to vote for who you think would win or who you want to win, the hopefuls pool.
Okay.
Then we move up to the contenders pool, where there would be a pool of 10 names. That the 10 is locked on that one. So whoever wins from the hopefuls pool in one round, they are then the lowest seeded name in the 10-person hopefuls pool,
You mean
or
the
the contenders
contenders
pool.
pool? Yeah.
Meanwhile, from the previous round, whoever had the least votes, or actually the least votes and the lowest seeded, would get bumped out of the contenders pool and drop down. But then after the contenders pool, then when you get up to, and at the time I did, just again, this is just like a Jason on my message board with the tag team one, then I'd have 5 rungs, as I called them, just like a ladder rung. And that just simply matches the 2 people, you know, just 2 names. So on rung 5, whoever wins next week would move up to rung 4. Whoever loses drops down to the contenders pool.
And I take it that when you get to rung 4 onward, the you winners move up all the way up to when you get to the top.
Yeah, yeah, just all the way up. And then when you're in rung 1, obviously, if you win there, you stay there.
Well, of course, because you reach the top.
Right. And then the loser moved in, so it just continue, and so it just creates a scenario where you can just do this continuously. And then it was, and I actually started because I think I had, I don't know if I had SmackDown versus Raw 2009 first. It was released first, but I'm not sure if I had it first or the Legends of WrestleMania game, which is a little more arcadey in the gameplay.
As far as I remember, I believe it was no, it was Legends of WrestleMania. I remember.
Yeah, those are
Um,
the first ones that I did matches in. I'm not sure if I had that game first, and then I opted to go. Ooh, well, let me try getting this game. I'm not sure, but yeah, in fact, tell you the truth, I have notebooks when I keep track of who goes up and who goes down, and I keep these notebooks. The very first one I did with Legends of WrestleMania was on April 8th of 2009.
wow. I'm surprised you even kept a record of that, man.
Well, every show we do, I have them down, and they just happen to be in a notebook because notebooks are nice and easy. And I'm like, oh, let me save this.
Oh my god, I remember those early ones.
And I started with the built-in chant because when you started, it's like the game kind of there was only a few titles in it. It's not like now with these games where they have all the old classic titles. There's like 40 singles titles and stuff.
Oh my god. Yeah, I remember. You only had like three titles, and not even including the top prize for the tag team. But
Yeah, there was heavyweight, intercontinental, $1 million title. And I started with the in-game champions, which they had Hulk Hogan assigned as the heavyweight, Ravishing Rick Rude as the intercontinental, and of course, the $1 million man with the $1 million belt.
Ted DiBiase.
God, I hated him back in the day.
Oh yeah, I hated him, but now I actually like him now, especially with his Twitter. Like I would read some of his stuff. Very smart man.
It's super cool guy from everything that I've heard, which I kind of wish I could. I mean, obviously you can watch video now, but I wish I could actually grow up watching it new where I could appreciate the heel character as he was doing it.
Oh yeah,
So that instead of just plain hating everything about him, I could go, he's awesome. I just hate his character.
yeah. Oh, of course. I may as well say that like Triple H, for instance, I grew up watching him. I could not stand him. I really could not stand him. I just like, oh my god, he just it's like he has a very twisted logic, and yet he believes in it, and I'm like, all right. And more than that, I mean, he always had advantages, and it was always nice to see, even in spite of the advantages that he would have, especially with his association with Mr. McMahon and Stephanie, as we all know. Just to see him fall at the hands of The Rock, Stone Cold, and then maybe later on John Cena, or actually no, not John Cena, sorry, Randy Orton. When he first started out, like when he first had his first ever heavyweight championship reign, if you remember.
Who's first? Heavyweight.
Randy Orton.
Orton's first, yeah. He wasn't he. Was he the youngest, or at that time?
Yeah, he was the youngest. He broke the record previously held by Brock Lesnar.
God, I don't like Lesnar. Sorry if anybody listening is a fan of his. I don't like him.
Well, we'll talk more about him in a moment, but so simply put, you use the in-game championships as the de facto championships because back in that time, you couldn't even make your own championships. You had to stick with what they had.
Right.
And it's not like you had DLC back in those days.
Especially not the way they do now, where they pretty much kind of have it mapped out what's coming.
Oh yeah, definitely. But back in those days, the matches were really quick. Like it could be as long as maybe 9 minutes to as maybe as short as 4 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, especially with that kind of arcade style that the game had too. Like a 30-man Royal Rumble. It didn't. I mean, it seems like now the game it kind of averages about a minute per person. It's kind of the so a 30-man Rumble takes about 30 plus minutes. This old one here, it's like you could probably do it in like 15 because they would vanish from the screen. They wouldn't walk to the back. As soon as they hit the floor, they just disappear.
Yeah, yeah. It was like poof, you're gone or something like that. But yeah, I understand, and the only way it would make it longer is if you had the 6 people in the ring to fill it up, and you can't fill it up any more than that.
Right.
I always hated that limit, but I get the fact that you have to do it just to you know just to keep the quality of the gameplay going.
From what I'd heard from developers, this was, I think, when 13 came out or something like that. They keep the limit at 6, not necessarily because they can't handle more characters, but kind of like you said, it's the visual quality with all the polygons and all that kind of thing. It's like if they went any more, you would start losing some visual quality.
Oh, right. Then it would. So in other words, the visual quality, like from the ring to the ringside and everything else, would look very, very crappy. I will say that.
Now, I don't know technically, but it just sounds to me it's not that it would look very crappy, but there would be a little bit of a degrading in it that people with trained eyes would probably know. Probably you or I, or especially me, I probably wouldn't necessarily notice a slight degrading in quality visually.
But some people would.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Legends of WrestleMania years. Those were good times.
It's a fun little game.
It is a fun little game. Um, I don't know what else to say about that one.
I did like too how you could import your. I think actually I did have Legend of WrestleMania first, and I found out that you could import the wrestlers from SmackDown versus Raw 2009
Oh yeah, that
if
one. Yeah.
if you had save data from that game, then you could import that roster into Legend of WrestleMania, thus making it suddenly an 80-man like roster. But you kind of didn't import them because they still look in the style of Legend of WrestleMania. They really unlocked them is more what you did. Like they already had them built. It's just that you can't play with these guys until you have this game and save data from that game.
I never thought of it that way, and plus the characters from '09 handled a little differently than the ones in Legends of WrestleMania. I noticed that.
Not real. I mean, the gameplay was just the same. It just their move sets. It just depends what moves they
Oh,
had,
that's what I
really.
meant. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.